I want to invite now the panelists. Please, Esti, Menachem, Yohanan, and Rabbi Karmi, please all join us. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming from Israel to be with us. As I said, we don't want to critique, and this is a very sensitive subject, we don't want to critique unless the people who are involved are here, so thank you for being here. I think we're going to do it in that way. I'm going to have a dialogue with each one of you, and I will introduce you when I have a dialogue with you, and then after that I will open some questions to all of us, and I want to keep some time for our audience to ask questions too. So, I think ladies first, for sure, since it's a Haredi world, you don't have so much voice. So Esti, I want to start with you. First of all, Toda Rabba for being here. Esti, a few words about you. You're the CEO of ATIDA. I think you are one of the unique CEO in the ultra-Orthodox world, so thank you for holding all of that. And ATIDA, and you will say it much better, is an NGO that supports Haredi women who want to be involved in the Israeli society in the meaning of work, of academy, and you do it also by doing something so unique. So I need you to listen to that. In ATIDA, you have hundreds of Haredi, and when I say Haredi, means that when I ask in my family about do you know ATIDA, everyone told me we want the children to be in ATIDA. Meaning you have the main Haredi woman who choose to work, not to serve. I need to be very specific. To work at the military. And they are working in the best elite unit. And the military is asking, please more. There is something about the Haredi woman, the seriousness, the knowledge that many of them in the age of 19 have kids. And they are the main breadwinners. That the units want them in the IDF. And they're serving in 8-200, they're serving in the Shabak, they're serving in the Air Force, and some of them got award for things around the war with Iran and for other secret operations. So Esti, you need to do two things. You need first to involve Haredi women in the IDF, and second, to involve Haredi women to have the courage to grow into all of that. How does the hell do you do it?
Yakir, thank you for inviting me first. Saying all this beautiful thing about our organization and activity. I'm here because I believe that we are the solution. It cannot be a solution just with half of the population. You cannot bring any solution with 49% of the solution of the population. And our women that come and join the IDF, they are the solution. Each one of our women that coming every day from Bnei Brak and Bet Shemesh and other Haredi cities to the army, and every day goes back to the community, she's the bridge. We're building hundreds of bridges between the communities, between the Israeli communities and the Haredi society. I believe that we build bridges of trust. Like, women can be part of the security system, the economy system, and still stay Haredi, to keep the way of lives, to keep the tradition, and be respectful from the people around her, and still be part of the Israeli society, to bring value, very high level of value. You You spoke before about Haredi. You mentioned that Haredi are not study degrees in the academy, but it's right just about the men. The women study and they work more than, Yohanan know that more than 80% from the women in the Haredi community work, but they are not part of the main buildings, main valuable issues in Israel, not in the Knesset and not in
They're not members of the Knesset. They can vote, but they cannot vote for them, right?
So in order to have a voice, you need to know what's going on around. And our women have, in Hamodia, no one writes about what's happened really in the IDF.
Just to make sure, Hamodia is one of the two main, most mainstream journals in the Haredi world, ATIDA-Engaging and Hamodia.
And you also mentioned the process that our women are going through. So I can tell you that just in the last war, we had 2 women from the Air Force that was in the war. I don't know how you say it.
The special place where the highest grade of the officers are staying.
And they show the program of the attack on Iran in front of the Prime Minister and the head of the Shabak. 2 Haredi women, like really Haredi women, and they having such a high value that they're bringing, and it couldn't happen without our organization.
So Esti, I wonder, can you share a little bit what happened to a family of a Haredi woman that the husband is studying the Kollel in the yeshiva, and the woman, she is in 8200 with the most elite unit of the intelligence or in the Air Force. What happened to the family? And maybe you can bring me a story, because I think we need stories.
Yes, we need stories. I think that what happened is, actually I can share with you that my PhD that I'm writing now in Bar Ilan, I'm writing about this specific question. What happened to the family, what happened to the perceptions? And what I can tell you that the husband getting the opportunity to know also the IDF. They going to visit, they building trust. I heard about, like in a secret, nobody's want to speak about it out loud because it's gonna kill the program, but the husband joined the army too, the brothers and sisters, because what I told you about the bridges of trust, they learn that they can trust the army, they can trust the system when they promise they will keep the way of life and the tradition, and they will give them the opportunity to sit in appropriate way, like gender separate and etc. They keep the words. And I think you asked before, Rabbi David, if the army is preparing to the Haredi community. So I agree that things change and the army change, and what we're doing in our organization, we also guiding the commanders with special specialities, people that teach them how to have the Haredi. And you asked about the families. I think that this is the main issue that we're doing. Like when a mother can tell her daughter when she see like aircraft in the sky in the war and tell her, there where I'm working, this is my job. So the daughter knows that she has an opportunity also to join them and to be part of the Israeli society.
Thank you so much, Esti. So I wonder, when you think about the women, and for how many years do they work in the military?
They come in for 3 years, and they serving in more than 20 units all over Israel, from the north and the south.
And for how long? For 3 years?
for 3 years. But the interesting point is that almost 30% of our alumni staying in a permanent...
So the military love them so much, they continue to hire them.
Yeah, they getting higher salary and they really fight for them. So I just got a call yesterday from a commander. He asked me, Esti, can you help me to get the Tekken? I don't know how we say. And for
he wants ATIDA
to help him.
Women to be there in his meetings.
Yeah,
this is fascinating.
I spoke with one of the commander. He told me, I don't want any more regular soldier. I want just ATIDA women come to join us. They're so serious. They're bringing so high level of value. I prefer your women instead of soldiers.
So I wonder what happened to a woman who joined ATIDA when you speak with her, let's say 3 years after. What changed inside her?
Besides the higher salary that she gets in
Sure, the salary, we love it. But what changed? I mean, meeting with the others that you never meet, there is no change, it cannot change you.
Of course. As I mentioned before, we have research also from the outside, and also myself. I wrote my thesis, I wrote my PhD now. I'm interviewed women that graduate our program, and I can tell you for sure that things change, the perception changed, the understanding of the being one nation changed, what's to be part of the Israeli nation. Like one of the women told me, I can understand why they murder us, why a mother that sent her boy for 3 years to the field to be killed for us, why she murdered us. I can understand, I can agree with her. I couldn't understand it before because we wasn't part of the story, like we was always in the side. I can feel, appreciate to the soldier that sits next to me, and he gave 3 years from his life for us. So he changed from them to us. This is the main change that happened in the perceptions.
Toda Rabba, Esti. Thank you so much. I would love to continue with Rabbi Karmi. If we can have a mic. So Rabbi Karmi, this is your home. You grew up in Florida. You studied yeshiva in Florida. And then you are in education for over 40 years. And then around 20 years ago, you decided to make aliyah, to join, to make immigration to Israel. And what you're doing is to open Yeshivat Hesder for ultra-Orthodox, Derech Chaim, which is today a network of Yeshivat Hesder, meaning yeshiva where you study Torah and you serve in the military. Something that for years, when I grew up in the Haredi world, they told me no chance. So first of all, it's fascinating that we need the American to come to Israel, and then they make the change.
From Miami Beach.
Yes, exactly. The Talmud Bavli teach the Talmud Yerushalmi. I love it. Why do we need an American rabbi to change the Haredi world in Israel? What do you see that they don't see there?
I could say it really very quickly.
It must be quick.
I'll give you the 3-word answer, and then I'll expound a bit. I am a rabbi after all. Because we're normal. That's the short answer. And what I mean when I say that, obviously everyone thinks they're normal, but people misunderstand what the issue of Haredi not going to the army is. And it's a very, very common misconception. By the way, misconception also exists in the Knesset itself. Around 2 weeks ago, I spoke in the Chutz Bitachon of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, and I told them this. Did they listen to me? Probably not. But the misconception is that the reason Haredi don't go to the army is because if they go to the army, then they can't learn Torah, which is a lie. They say if we go to the army, they will not be religious, which is a lie. And the problem with that is people buy into it and they think, oh, then if we make a Haredi division or, like Cheshmonaim, and we get, then that'll solve the problem.
Cheshmonaim, just to make sure that we all understand, is a new unit in the military that was created only for Haredim. Is not only a Gdud, which is around 100 of soldiers. Now we speak about thousands of soldiers.
Yes. What is the reason? And the reason is very simple. We don't have a clash of religion here. That would be solvable. What we have is a clash of cultures. The Haredim in Israel come from an Eastern European, Russia type. That's the Aliyah Rishana, Aliyah Shniya. The people who came first to Israel came from Russia. The way that the Russian Jew dealt with the other was by building a wall, building a ghetto, and saying we want nothing to do with you. And it was very easy to do because there wasn't really much going on in the Russian peasants that was that alluring to the Haredi. So to build that wall was easy. When they came to Eretz Yisrael, they kept that exact same philosophy. So to them, going to the army, and they'll say it, we're going to the Russian army. Have you paid attention to wearing kippot there? No, it's just the way they deal with any type of otherness is by trying to build a wall and close it off. Coming from the States, we saw a different type of Haredi. And the Haredi in America that I grew up with is a Haredi who can go to academia, a Haredi who can go to university, a Haredi who can be a Dolphin fan, Hurricanes also, right? And we can go to games. In fact, a couple of years ago, Rabbi Zev Leff, who also came from Miami, right, and he was taking a picture somewhere in England of going to a soccer game. Now, he happened to be learning a sefer during the game. Anyone who's watched soccer would know why you would want to learn a sefer, learn a different book during the game. But sorry Israelis, but, okay? And that caused such an uproar in Israel, because here's a Haredi rabbi, and you're at a soccer game. But for us, that was normal, because the Western European model in France and Rav Hirsch and in Germany was a model which said, no, we can be part of the culture and yet it not affect us. I always call it, you draw a line, you don't build a wall. I want to say something very clear here.
So I want to make it harder for you. Because what you actually tell me, that you want to change the Haredi. So when the military says, I want you to continue to be yourself and to serve in the military, you want to tell them, actually, I want you to change it and to become Western or Jews than the Eastern. Can you a little bit elaborate here?
I can't elaborate too much because I see people are taping it. So that's
the courage we need.
That can be wrong. The answer, Bigadol, is yes. And they know that. I want to make a statement here, and I don't mind if people record this. If anyone would ask me, as a believing Jew, what is the number one most crucial danger to the state of Israel today? It is not in Gaza, it is not in Lebanon, it is not in Syria, it is not in Iran. Because I believe, Baruch Hashem, we have an army and we have HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have God who will step in and help us and save us. But when we fight with each other, God will not help us. Quite the opposite, He will punish us. And the number one issue which everybody should be talking about, which unfortunately nobody is talking about, is Jewish unity. We must find a way for Achdut. We must find a way to come together. Unity demands sacrifice. Unity demands compromise. So yes, does the Haredi world, and it's not the whole Haredi world, the Haredi world is not monolithic, there are all types of shades. But in the Haredi world, I think I speak for approximately 50% of the Haredi world, who already want a connection to Israeli society. They don't know yet how to do it. And I think for them, the work that Dudi Hager has done, that Yossi is doing, and others, has really made a difference. We allow this. And we have grown. 13 years ago, I opened the first Haredi Hesder Yeshiva, which allowed boys to learn Torah, to earn an academic degree, which we're the only ones who do that. We had a special allowance from the Army, to serve in the IDF. Now we have combat units, mostly it's tech units. Now we're even opening combat units. To do all of that, and then to enter society, and yet to change from who they were, Chad mashma'i ken, 100% yes, is make that change.
Thank you so much. We say in the Israeli-American community, we learned that it's unity without uniformity. It means we must be together. It doesn't mean that I want you to become like me, but it means that I want to be with you, not although you are different, but actually because you're different, I want to learn to live together. And I think that this is sometimes something that I feel actually the Israeli society outside of the Haredi needs to understand. That if the Haredi community is going to change, and we see the change, you do it every day for 25 years. It means also that Israel is going to change. And what I think, and I will go to the opening of my remarks, this war shows us that many Israelis want to be connected to their Jewish identity. The hostages tell you that. What kept them there was the Jewish identity. And they want more. And I think if the Haredi, as Esti said, the officers want you. And what you, Rabbi Karmi, you tell us is also the Haredi community needs to understand the meaning of living together. So thank you so much. Now it's going to be hard. Yohanan Plesner, the president of the Israeli Democracy Institute. You served, and not just served, you served in one of the most elite units in the military in Sayeret Matkal, which is a command of the intelligence. You were a member of the Knesset, and thank you for your service there. This is the hardest one, probably. And then in 2012, you are working already 13, 14 years ago about what we're going to do with the Haredi in the military. So now my question is going to be for you like that. I listened to hours of beautiful interviews, fascinating. Yohanan, do you seriously want my nephews who are living in Modi'in Elite, who their Hebrew is limited because they speak Yiddish, who don't know anything about Israeliness because all the world is Torah and Gemara and the beauty of the Hasidic community? Do you want them to join the military? Are you serious? I would say it even differently. Do you seriously want to have a WhatsApp group with a Vishnitzer Rebbe who is going every day to give you hundreds of rules? What kind of a mikveh you need to have in the unit? What kind of a nusach shachris you're going to have? What do we want?
So I'm Tovim, Boker Tov, and thanks for having me here. And it's a great honor to be with my fellow panelists and David Hager, who've been working to change reality for so many years with so many important achievements. The short answer is, of course I want them. I want them in the military. I want them in the economy. I want them in Israeli society. I want them basically to make aliyah to the state of Israel. They are today in an autonomy, and Rabbi Gross described it very articulately. So I don't need to repeat what he said. Basically, the mentality is still the mentality of East Europe, whereby the state and its institutions are the gvir. It's a mitzvah to take as much as you can and not to give back. Now it worked okay. I grew up in Jerusalem, so I know this community very well. My school was in the middle of the Shuk Machane Yehuda. Next to us, there were, I think Tokdot Aaron even was next to us. So I know this community, unlike many other Israelis who are blessed aware. And that's why I'm aware of those issues, and that's why I thought about them, and that's why 15 years ago I began dealing with these issues, because the nice thing about demography is that it gives you a heads up. So it lets you know that things are going to change. It gives you sufficient time to get prepared. And you asked me, do you want them? Yes. 25% of the Jewish cohort of 18 years old are Haredi. 30 or 30-something% of the Jewish first graders, and I'm saying Jewish not because I disregard Israeli Arab citizens, but when it comes to military service, obviously there might be civil service of Arab, but when it comes to military service and protecting our lives, and Baruch Hashem, there are people who want to take our lives, and the threat is real, and we might not even return to Israel with our flights in the upcoming few days because of the renewed Iranian threat. So we know that the threat is present, a clear and present danger, and therefore we're not playing games. And the current reality is not sustainable. I have to say that, and I'd like perhaps to connect it to the things that David has said before, and Esti to some extent, because David proved sort of engaged, or is engaging for 25 years in an important, critical, holy, amazing proof of concept experiment. And Kol HaKavod is putting his life, his money, his reputation. He called me up the first time we met. He called me up back in 2010 or 11 because I was really the only member of Knesset who cared about this issue. It wasn't on the headlines like it's today. But I thought it's strategic. People told me, you have to do things that only will get you into the paper and your political career won't last. And they were right, it didn't last because I thought you go into politics in order to do what's important. And then one day I had an argument with Rosh Akka, the general, about adding another battalion, which by the way, the army wanted more Haredim, but they didn't want more homogeneous battalions of Haredim. And I still, and the argument there, I think it was, I opposed another more homogeneous battalions and we wanted more different companies. I can't remember exactly what I supported then, but Dudi Benagir called me, I never knew him, with a weird accent, and he's like, I want to hug you. I didn't know who this guy was. And from then on, we've been trying to change reality together. But having said that, we also have to look at the big picture. You make reality by proving a change, a proof of concept at the grassroots level, and this is what Esti is doing in a wonderful way, and David is doing in a wonderful way. But David, if one of your businesses, you're a businessman as well, for 25 years, the entrepreneur that you would invest in would tell you, I'm still in a proof of concept phase. And you're going to ask him, but what about the scaling? I put some money, I want my exit. What about the scaling of this project? So the problem is that we're not seeing scale. So 1,200 people are Haredi. 1,200 people who are counted as Haredim in 2012 joined the IDF. In 2022, while the number of the Haredi community pretty much doubled. In 2012, it was roughly about 7,000. In 2022, roughly about 14,000. Now it's 16,000, the cohort of 18-year-olds. The number remained 1,200. And out of those 1,200, about 70%, at least as we counted it in 2022, were counted as Haredim, but were not really Haredim anymore. Because they basically, yatzu v'she'ela, or no longer saw themselves as part of this community, like, you know those stories. So a proof of concept is not enough. Now we need scale. And given the numbers, we spoke about the numbers in Israeli society as parts of the cohort, what the needs of the IDF, but there's also the economic aspect. You said, do I want them? Yes, those who can serve in the military, I want them in the military. But those who are not in the military, I want them in the economy. We've been witnessing in the first 10 years of this millennium, of the 2000s, somewhere between 2005 and 2010, there was a promising increase in the participation of the workforce of Haredi men, somewhere between 30-something to about 52% at 2015. A nice increase. So all of us did the numbers and said, we're moving ahead. Fast forward 10 years, 2025, same 52-53% participation in the workforce with levels of productivity about half of the non-Haredi in the workforce, about 49% in terms of levels of productivity, and many of them, as you probably know, of the 52% are basically living off, various public positions in the Haredi education system, not really contributing to the growth and writing up the next stories of the startup nation. Although we have a few success stories, but this is not the big picture. Now, what does all this mean? We know that, and I'm not going to be long, but we know that today, in 24 and 25, and I don't want to be gloomy because I'm optimistic about the future, but we have to change the future and we have to start scaling. 24 and 25, there was a negative net immigration outside of Israel. For the first time, it's only the fourth time in 100 years. So, young Israelis, when you ask them, are you going to stay here? Especially educated young Israelis say, well, the cost of living, affordability, how can I buy a home? What's the future? And then you look at those trends, you understand that, the intake from the Haredi community, which is a big share of our society, 14%, only 4% of the tax of the directed is paid by this community, and therefore the average, because of the deficiency in participation in the workforce and in payments of taxes and so on, the average non-Haredi person pays about, we calculated, 3,000 or 4,000 shekels more every year in additional taxes, right? So the short story, and there are difficult dilemmas, and I hope you're going to ask me about them, that the current trajectories are not sustainable because we ain't seen nothing yet. It's a community that 60% of it are under the age of 20. So if we're not going to engage in significant change of trajectory, and it has to come from above with an entirely different regulatory environment that will create the conditions and the right incentives for change, both in the participation in the military burden, in the economic burden, and in the social burden. So we will actually create the right incentives for this community to make aliyah into Israel and to be part of the future success of Zionism.
Thank you so much, Yohanan. Thank you so much. You speak about making aliyah to Israel, and I'm going to challenge you more. You're the president of the Israeli Democracy Institute. What you are doing as an Israeli, because they are not going to make, I think it's I don't know what I feel about that they need to make aliyah to Israel. I think Israel needs to change. So Ben-Gurion thought that everyone is going to become Ben-Gurion Israel. If they're going to make aliyah, it means that they need to change for us, for the, let's say the Israelis, whatever we call it. My question for you is, what Israel need to change? What do you need to change? How your institute is preparing and making psychological, almost to go to, we all need to go to therapy. That's what I hear you today. And they say, you say brilliant about the peace law. We need to do peace. What you're doing in your institute in order to change yourself, to get the gift that the Haredi bring with them. I can tell you one thing. I grew up in the Hasidic community. If God was here, I would say thank you for giving me the gift to grow up in the Haredi community. And then I will say thank you again for giving me the courage at one day to change. But the values that I got in the Haredi world, I'm so lucky. What you're doing to change the institute to be ready for the gift of the Haredi?
Well, by the way, we changed our institute in some of you because we're working closely and engaging in many discussions dramatically because we understand that I think this is the challenge of Israel and Israeliness of the upcoming few decades. I asked Karmit Flug, she's a senior fellow with us, she was the governor of the central bank and probably the most respected economist in Israel. I asked her, I have a weekly podcast here, I'm publishing it right now, so I asked her in one of my discussions there, having decades of experience, what is the one issue come our 100th birthday in 2048? If there's one economic issue that you can now put your finger and say, now this, we need to change direction, trajectory, policy in order to ensure that Israel is on the right path. She said the trajectory of integration of the ultra-Orthodox community. So from her vantage point, as strictly as an economist, she looks at it, she's a numbers person, and she looks at the numbers and she looks at the trends, and she understands that we're heading, and I don't want to be a party pooper, because I'm an optimist, because I believe we can do change, and I see all of these wonderful people around me, and those are all change agents. So I believe we can make change, but if we won't be able to make change and scale it to the large numbers, we're heading towards a situation of a second world country, a third world country, that obviously will not be able to afford for its citizens the first world services, neither of health nor of security. We know how much security costs, how much each F-35. So we need change. For that, at my institute, I defined it as the most important issue. I have 18 different people with expertise on various aspects of this huge challenge, and trying to help us prepare for how Israel should. Israel will be different in that sense, and we need to imagine it. But we have to understand one thing, and unfortunately, I mean, David Agar said before, and I listened to you very carefully all the years. I agree with most, not with everything. That he speaks to the rabbis and he hears wonderful things in private. What I learned, for 20 years I've been engaging in public stuff. 6 years as a Chaver Knesset, 2 years as a Secretary General of the then ruling party, and so I've been around. What people tell you in private doesn't matter. It's unimportant in public life. Only what is said in public. So I listen. I'm also part of dialogues and discrete dialogues, and I've been here and there, and I'm listening. I remember, I can say that because it's enough time has passed. I remember sitting with Aryeh Deri back in 2012 before I returned into politics. And he told me wonderful things about how Shas needs to be the bridge for integration, and I felt like my seat is being uplifted with inspiration and a sense of awe. And de facto, what happens is what matters is what people say in public. And in public, we consistently hear those who matter, those who sort of are the leaders of the mainstream Haredi community. Both the rabbis and the politicians, and for me it's astounding. After COVID, after the war, in the midst of war, when our kids are mutar lepirsum and risking their lives and saving the country, and they don't budge even a millimeter in the agreement to make any change. Therefore, the change will happen only, and that's my conclusion, if it will be sufficiently important for the mainstream Zionist leaders, from the right, from the national religious group, from the secular and traditional groups, from the right, center, and left, and they'll say, okay, this issue is sufficiently important, let's change the set of conditions. And I'm not talking about coercion necessarily. Mainly, the main tools that will change reality are economic tools. Changing the entire system of benefits of our welfare state that enables the current state to continue, that enables this autonomy to continue to prosper and flourish. And here I don't agree with David, who spoke about, I agree with you when you spoke about the current recruit or exemption bill, and you said it's not going to recruit even one Haredi. I agree with you about that. But I don't agree with you when you're saying it's not really important, that bill, because what will change reality are the facts on the ground. You're partially right, but this bill does create the big picture, it sets the rules of the game, and the rules of the game are there, and that's the big impact of the current legislation if it passes. Every Haredi man who wishes, 100% of them even, who wishes not to serve, can defer service, get a deferral, stay in the yeshiva, be locked up in the yeshiva, whether he wishes or whether he doesn't wish, until the age of 26, by which time they're on average they're married, they have kids. It's way too late to acquire skills for the workforce. The entire system of subsidies remains by this legislation intact, and therefore it's extremely destructive because it puts us on the same trajectory. And then there will continue to be amazing David Haggers will try to, within that framework, to change reality. But you won't succeed in the big picture. You will succeed with nice success stories, thousands of them, but not in terms of the fate of the Jewish state.
This is interesting because I think about that when there are 20, they have already 2 kids. I think when you wait to 26, I don't know. But we need to think about it. And I think, I really, really wonder, it's interesting for me that I'm still missing what you need to change. But I will hold with that. Because
what I'm willing to change?
The Israelis need to change. I think it needs to be a real peace.
Okay, I'll answer you.
We'll come to that later. I just want to hold it here. This is also a question I want to bring. Menachem Bombach. Menachem, you also grew up in Visions. I told you it's going to come again and again. We had David Hager as a cousin, now we have the students and other students. Visions is going to be all over. You grew up in Visions. You study in one of the flagship yeshiva in Jerusalem, in Mir Yeshiva. And I want to, and you are something that the Jewish tradition maybe admire the most. You are an educator. You are raising the Haredi to become Haredi. You are melamed tinokot shel bet Rabban, which is the highest level in the tradition. But you didn't start, you started with one yeshiva. And in your yeshiva, you did something that where they, because of you, you had demonstrations in the Haredi world because of you. You are the rabbi and you are the traitor. They love you and they're really afraid of you. They're freaking out from you. Because you decided to make a yeshiva with also what they call secular, or we would call general studies. From one yeshiva, it's become a network of yeshiva that thousands of students are studying and you have a huge responsibility. So with you, I want to speak a little bit of education because you are the one who prepared them to choose if they're going to go to the military. The Vishnitzer Rebbe, in the First World War, his name was Rabbi Israel Hager. His nickname was Ahavat Israel, the one who loved Israel. And he said one of the sentences that changed my life, that made me who I am. He said, if there is a rabbi in one side of the world that doesn't feel the pain of a Jew in another part of the world, he's not a rabbi. When you listen to your rabbis, to the ultra-Orthodox rabbis, how they speak about the military, when we have in every village and city in Israel parents who lost their children, do the rabbis still have Ahavat Israel, the love for Israel? Continue, please. Critique with love.
Careful, they record me. So
that's what we need.
No.
To be recorded.
Yeah. First of all, you should continue to describe my journey. You do it beautiful, and you know all the details, and it's amazing. And thank you for that. And thank you for having me. I would say about the rabbis in Ahavat Israel, I can say 2 things. I met many of them quietly, as Yohanan just mentioned. Who speaks quiet, right, and not publicly. It's not about leadership. And I see their frustration, and I think they feel so bad with themselves. But I'll tell you one story. You know Rabbi Levin? Rabbi Levin was a very famous rabbi. Was once a guy came to him and said, Are you a part of the 36 Ibn Tzaddikim? There is a myth that there's 36 Ibn Tzaddikim in each generation. So he said, sometimes. And I like it because if you are a leader, it doesn't mean that you lead all the time. It depends about your actions. And unfortunately, I see more and more rabbis from the mainstream community, they have fear, they feel the danger, and they don't have the courage to act. And this is the result. It's very, very sad. So, but this is from one hand. And the other hand, I would say, there are so many people like us now. They feel the pain and they take a lot of responsibility. They start acting. I'm in education. Just for a few minutes ago, came to me a guy. He sat over here and he said, "You know me?" I said, "No. You know my son graduated in one of your schools." And then he passed over to your school, Rabbi Karmi. He came to you see? And this is about an ecosystem, things happening. And we need to take those moments and see and say, wow, we are doing something very great. And because Yohanan also speaks about the numbers, and also in my city, over 60% is under the poverty line. It's terrible. Yeah. But I would say, yes, you know the numbers better than me. This is a part of your job. But we are saying each day, Talmidei Chachamim, Marbim Shalom Ba'olam. What does it mean? Talmidei Chachamim, they're adding peace in the world. They're not doing peace. They can't do it. We just need to do a little bit, to start with our own steps and to deal with other problems. And we are in a good time. I should say, there is many stories I can share. I know the time is a limitation of our time, but we can share a lot of great things. It's happening mainly since October 7. We can see a lot of movements. Just for one example, Esti is sitting over here. Esti is one of the promises in the future of Israel. He's a young, he's amazing. I want to say, on October 7, Dan Yakir, you met him, right? And we are very close friends for many years, and he just a few days after October 7, he says, now 2,000 Haredi wants to enlist in the army. And I said, wow, this is a moment, history moment in terms of the Haredi community. So I texted him and I asked him, is that true, 2,000 Haredi? He says, I'm the spokesman from the army, so it's based on, And after a few hours, he texted me back and said, oh, I understand why you ask. Please meet the human resource development in the army. And I and David and Yossi, many great people, became this very special meeting, and we spoke about what we can do to bring more and more and more Haredi. And I have to say, we ran, I and Yossi, a beautiful campaign with the army to encourage Haredi to come to the second stage to the army. It was unbelievable. We bring up the percentage was very much better than before, but still I have to say I was very, very frustrated. I was sure since October 7, much more people are going to come. They're going to be much more identified. They're going to, they're going to change some of their values to understand they are part of Israel. So I believe we are very far away from the old solution, but we need to encourage more people like us. David is sitting here because when I started my movement for 11 years ago, and you mentioned how many that demonstration, so there was one guy came to me and said, I believe in what you're doing, and he supports me since then. And I want to thank you, David, for your generosity and what you do for us, because now we have thousands and thousands of kids who are educated to have full matriculation. You know Good Code? You heard about Good Code? Good. Good is very a special project in the Army, you know about that. And I met one of the people there, and then I figured out one of my projects is a commander, right? Things is happening, and we need to embrace those moments and those brilliant, brilliant actions. I would say that over 50% of the kids who are studying in their high schools go to the Army. So we're looking for people like you. You should continue helping us to make it happen.
So one of the things that you decided to do in your yeshiva, Menachem, is not only to teach general studies, but you also teach them things that I wish in a regular Israeli high school they will study. You teach them well-being. You teach them how to be connected to their bodies. You teach them compassion, active listening. Where does it all come from?
So I didn't mention.
I wish I would be a student in your yeshiva. Let's summary like that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I would say that Yohanan spoke very much about the immigration to Israel. So I'm always happy to share with the people that I also immigrated to Israel in the age of 20 from Mea Shearim. So I know exactly what it means diaspora. I'm a part of it. And I didn't speak even Hebrew. Just imagine what it means to live in Israel and not speaking a language. Mea Shearim. I envision it, but I studied in an anti-Zionist community. I didn't know nothing about the outside world. It was real walls. Now, those walls, it doesn't matter because over 70% has access to the internet. By the way, you should say, you asked me about empathy, right? The new wall speaks for highly about the 4 C's, right? Communication, cooperation, critical thinking, right? Creativity. And I want to raise a generation who see themselves as already, created, but fully integrated in Israeli society. And that's when you need a lot of flexibility. The world is uncertainty, so they need to be moved, to really change what's going on in the community. And so therefore, for me, it's so important to give them those skills, life skills. So we invest a lot on those skills and empathy and listening skills. And everybody who meets my graduates, they ask from where you are. So I mean, it's like it becomes a code, and I'm very proud of them.
I love it. Thank you so much for So we still have 30 minutes. I want to open it now to you. Any questions that you have for this panel? I want to ask for 2 things. 1, the questions should be short. The answers must be short. Bebakasha. Come to a question. Only questions. I will not get any reaction. It should be short questions.
We're in a time of a crisis. The IDF needs 15,000 soldiers. The only source of soldiers is the Haredi society. What are we going to do now? Not in 5 years, not in 10 years, not in 20 years. What are we going to do now?
I think the answer partially is that, just give you a little example. When I got married, I had a very nice suit, fit me beautifully. Over the years, for reasons I do not know, I put on a bit of weight. Can't imagine how, just I guess with age. And then after like 10 years, when I had put on 20, 30 pounds, one of my children was getting married. And I said, oh great, I have my wedding suit. And I put on the suit, I got one leg in, that was about it. And I turned to my wife and said, how can I make the suit fit? And she said, well, it doesn't. And you should have thought of this 20 years ago. I think that there are 2 major issues that must be spoken about. Number 1 is that the Israeli government, I think you mentioned this, has to really, if they believe and they really want Haredim in the army, then they have to change the way they do things. And maybe politicians are the worst people to do it. Unfortunately, they have the only ones who can do it. But I can give you many, many examples of where the army programs such as ours, which have been very successful, which have quadrupled. We began with 8 students 12 years ago. Today, the whole Reshet has over 1,000 students. And the government doesn't really fund us any different than any other school. If they were really interested, then they could seriously fund our schools. And if I had unlimited funding, which I believe the government should do because we're doing everything they said they want, I could quadruple, if not tenfold, the number of students that we have. That's number 1. And if I can just add one more thing here, and this I'll say to Yohanan and to the Knesset, and I mentioned this to them. You can legislate change. You cannot legislate immediate change. The fact that the government has found itself and the country has found itself in a critical stage, as you say, sometimes the answer is there is no immediate answer. This should have been thought about a long time ago. The educational systems which we're building now should have been built a long time ago. And if the government would do their part in funding and supporting what we are doing, then not tomorrow, but at least down the road in the next 5-10 years, this problem could be solved.
Yeah, first of all, I agree 100% with everything you said, so it makes it easier for me to build on your answer. I think the sources of soldiers, number one, not pass the current legislation, because the current legislation, not only will it not put us on a trajectory of long-term change, but it will kill all the current incentives for service that do exist. Some of the economic incentives that mainly matter for those who David spoke about before, that don't really study and so on, and those incentives have an impact on them. So number one, don't pass a bad legislation that will put us on a bad trajectory. I fully agree, there's so many nice initiatives, and like we had a discussion, I think you were around the table, with various yeshivot Hesder Charediyot and all sorts of such arrangements that are completely ostracized and alienated by the government. So on the one hand, there's a talk of we need more soldiers, but they're amazing initiatives, and people, and you know, we find ourselves trying to help. It's completely ludicrous. Number three, and I'll say that both with an exclamation mark and a question mark. We've been talking for the past 2 years when we realized that our enemies are literally ala gader and beyond the gader, that we need more soldiers, and it's going to be a sustainable change of more soldiers, bigger IDF, bigger security challenges. So we started speaking about the Haredim and so on. In the meantime, b'sheket, where did we get 2,000 additional soldiers per year, for which quote-unquote sector? There's an unknown sector, I can't speak about it, but it's half of the population, women. So rather than 7,000 combatants per year that were in 23 before the war started, then in 25, around 9,000. So 2,000 more per cohort per year. Way more than so much talk and so much discussion about additional Haredim, and we have here a part of the population, half of the population, burning with motivation, goodwill, ability to fight. I'm a bit biased because my daughter was also a combatant in this war. She joined in 22. She was in a missiles unit, served throughout the war. Courageous, able, capable. I'm very proud of her. But she's only one of 20% of the combatants of the standing army are women. So finally, Yakir, I'll just end with a question mark. Because David, and I'm sorry that I'm speaking to you and you can't answer, but he laid in front of us a real challenge. And I don't have the answer. And the challenge is, if we want a mass of Haredim, say half of the Haredim, you said it's 8,000 per year, times 3, 24,000, I agree with the numbers. If you want them in the military, it cannot be with deluxe, glad kosher, of course, yes, because nobody wants to tamper with anyone's faith, but not with the conditions mainly of the women lying zones throughout. It doesn't add up, and we don't want to fix one problem by creating another problem. How do we create that new balance in a world where we have many more Haredim? I don't know the answer. We'll have to find a way. But it can't be in the same conditions of Netzach Yehuda that are laboratory conditions for a small group. And that's why I was against additional battalions, but rather more integrated solutions.
Anyone else? So we'll go to the next.
I want to agree with you that the change will come from the female side. I can agree more, because it's not just about the combats, it's about the population that grows. And the Haredi part of Israel is coming bigger. You spoke about 30% of the grade 1 in Israel is Haredi population. The youngest population in Israel is Haredi community. And I always joke and say our women, they are not just protecting Israel, they protecting Israel by having kids, and this is the future of Israel. You spoke about negative immigration, so this is the positive immigration. And I feel like we are the answer for you of what happened today that affect tomorrow.
Thank you so much. And one more question from anyone? Question?
It's a 2 minutes question.
No. It's fine. I'm so sorry. We have 4 minutes. And we'll do it. There's
I'll give him 2 minutes.
question.
1 minute.
What's that?
It's a question to you, Yohanan, but I will start and say, I grew up in the Haredi community in Israel. I learned in Mir, like my friend Menachem, let's see the revolution. And one day I decided to go to the IDF. Because of the units that David built, Netzach Nachal Haredi, I'm today the first Haredi battalion commander in the IDF, Lieutenant Colonel. Only because of that. And I want to tell you, it's not only Netzach Yehuda and Haredi. Today we have 4,000 Haredi active soldiers in Netzach Yehuda, Hashmonaim, Givati, Magav. I don't know if Yohanan knows. We built in the past 2 years because of the war. This is the answer to you. We understand the critical issue because I'm in reserve for 2 years. I'm in reserve with my unit, and I'm going to the Machanot Plitim, to Karem and Shams in 1 month, for 2 months. And we need Haredim immediately in the IDF. The solution is what we did in the past 2 years. We opened it, today we have 14 Haredi Hesder Yeshiva with 1,000 students. Rabbi Karmi started it, today we have 14 Hesder Yeshiva, only from education attitude. And we have 7 Mechinot, pre-army programs. All of them goes to a combat unit in the IDF. That's what we do. This is the only way to bring Haredim to the IDF with a big scale, and to see the Haredim involved in the security, economy, and this is the only way to bring unity and to fight Iran and Mamdani. This is the only way.
I love the question.
I agree.
Thank you. So, you have a question? Okay, let's see, 1 second. I don't want to, we are in 10:29. So, we need to end. And before I want to say thank you, I want to bring one question to you. We heard today a new definition that we all need to reflect on. It's called immigration, new immigration to Israel. So it's not immigration to Israel, it's immigration to Israeliness. Aliyah Yisraeliyut. I'm working at the IEC, the Israeli American community, for 8 years. I hear from thousands of you that you think that your children are Israelis. Interesting. So my question for all of us is, why it's not a dialogue among ourselves? Maybe we should all decide that we need all of our kids to be part of this dialogue, and not only a few of us join the IDF. Maybe we all need to rethink what's the role of Israelis in diaspora, in the education around the IDF. And before we will solve this issue, I want to invite you in another journey, a journey that you already started, and we started deeply at the IAC. We are proud that all of you are here. Because when Israelis, we come to America, as Rabbi Karmi said, we are learning that Judaism can be the most beautiful thing in the world. I will quote one of our members, I fall in love in Judaism when I became an American. So I want to thank you all for being part of this dialogue. I want to thank you all for opening yourself to this dialogue. Unity without uniformity. At 4:30 today, before the Shabbat will start, and each one of you will decide, do you go to the Reform prayer, do you go to the Orthodox prayer, at 4:30 we're going to have Kabbalat Shabbat for all of us in white. And I expect all the blackness and all the whiteness and everyone together to celebrate the Shabbat. Rabbi Karmi, Rabbi Menachem, Yohanan, Esti, David Hager, Toda Rabba for your service. We love you all.